Midpoints and segment bisectors. So first, a midpoint of a segment is a point on a line segment that divides it into two congruent pieces. So congruent means it's the same size, it's the same length. So we've talked about midpoint in terms of a coordinate plane, and now we're just talking about a midpoint in terms of a line segment. So we're going to have some numbers, we're going to have some variables, we're going to have to solve some equations. So for instance, if Q is the midpoint of segment PR, what are PQ, QR, and PR? So if we look at our picture, if Q is the midpoint, it means that PQ has to be the same as QR. So if they are the same, I can write the equation 6x minus 7 equals 5x plus 1. And if I were to solve that, I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. I get x minus 7 equals 1. I add 7 to both sides. I get x equals 8. Now to answer my question, I need to actually find the length of all of the segments. So I'm going to plug x equals 8 into PQ. So PQ is going to be 6 times 8 minus 7. So 6 times 8 is 48, minus 7 is 41. I don't actually have to do the math for QR, because if Q is the midpoint of PR, then if PQ is 41, then QR is also 41. And then I know PQ, I know QR. If I add those together, I get the whole distance from P to R, and that is 82. Let's try another one. M is the midpoint of LN. LM is 4x plus 3, and MN is 2x plus 17. So as I said earlier, if you're given something like this and you don't have a picture, draw it. So we have LN as our line segment that came from that information. M is going to be our midpoint. I'm going to put it right there. And then I'm going to label. So I'm going to say that LM is 4x plus 3. I'm going to write that right here. And MN is 2x plus 17, so I'm going to write that right there. Now, I don't know specifically how long the entire line segment LN is. However, since M is the midpoint, those two pieces have to be the same. So I can write the equation that 4x plus 3 equals 2x plus 17. And now all I have to do is solve it. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, and I'm going to subtract 3 at the same time. I'm going to get 2x equals 14, and if I divide both sides by 2, x equals 7. So now I'm asked to find ln. If I plug in 7 into one of the pieces, let's just say lm, I'm going to go 4 times 7 plus 3. So 4 times 7 is 28 plus 3 is 31. So if half of ln is 31, then all of ln is 62. Segment bisector. Similar idea, but it's saying that your segment is cut in half by something other than just a point. So you can have it cut in half by a line, a ray, or a segment. So it's a line, array, or a segment that divides a line segment into two congruent segments. Now, one of the notations that you're going to see is if M is the midpoint because line XY bisects segment AB, then we can say that A to M is the same as M to B. The notation you're going to see is that you put one little dash through each of those. Now, if you happen to know that M was also the midpoint of XY, you could put 2 dash marks on X to M and M to Y. Since you've already used 1 dash mark to show that AM and MB are the same, you would use 2 dash marks to show that XM and XMY are the same. So over here we have a ray that's actually bisecting segment AB. So MX is our ray, and it bisects segment AB. So A to M and M to B are congruent. Those are the same thing. So these ones do not have a picture. Again, draw your picture. So it says segment EF bisects AD at C. So we have segment AD And somehow there's this segment that's cutting through it, and it is segment EF, and it bisects. So EF is doing the bisecting. It's doing the cutting in half, and it's cutting it half at point C. So right here is going to be point C. Then it says that from A to C is 5x minus 8. So I'm going to label that as 5x minus 8. And CD is 16 minus 3x. So I'm going to label that as 16 minus 3x. So if EF is bisecting it, then C is the midpoint. We know that that must be the midpoint. So really these are just fancy midpoint problems. So if that's the midpoint, then I know that those two segments are congruent, and I can write the equation 5x minus 8 equals 16 minus 3x. So I'm going to solve this equation. I'm going to add 3x to both sides, and at the same time I'm going to add 8 to both sides just to get a bunch of stuff done. So I have 8x equals 24, and if I divide both sides by 8, I get x equals 3. Now I need to make sure I'm answering the question, so always go back to what you were asked. It was asked to find AD. So if I know that x equals 3, I can plug in x equals 3 into either of my equations or my expressions. So I'm going to choose to use AC. From A to C is 5x minus 8. So if x equals 3, that'd be 5 times 3 minus 8. 5 times 3 is 15, minus 8 is 7. So if A to C is 7, then C to D is also 7. So then A to D is adding them together, and you get 14. Okay, we're going to try one more. Now we have line FG, and it is bisecting segment DE. So the line is cutting the segment in half. So I have my segment DE, and somehow over here we have this line. So I'm going to put arrows on both ends because our notation right here is that it's a line. And somehow on this line I have points F and G. Who knows where they are? I just know they're on the line. Now it bisects segment DE at H, which means this right here, which is the midpoint, is point H. Now I'm going to label stuff. So I know that DH is 5x plus 15, and I know that EH is 8x plus 9. And again, if it's a midpoint, it means that those two sides are the exact same. They are congruent segments. So I can write the equation that 5x plus 15 equals 8x plus 9. So I'm going to solve this. I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides, and I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. That gets that gone from there, and that gone from there. And 15 minus 9 is 6. 8x minus 5x is 3x. And if I divide both sides by 3, I get x equals 2. Now again, my final answer is not x equals 2. It is what's the length from D to E. So I'm going to plug in x equals 2 into that right there. So I'm going to say from D to H is 5x, which I know is a 2, plus 15. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 15 is 25. So if half of it is 25, the other half of it is 25, and the entire thing has to be 50.